They laughed. Not the careful, measured laughter of diplomats. Not the restrained amusement of beings used to masking contempt behind protocol. This was open. Cruel. Predatory. 1,000 years of power, of conquest, of watching lesser civilizations rise and burn out, had taught the Galactic Council one thing above all else. Nothing new was ever truly dangerous. So when the humans spoke of special forces, the chamber erupted. Clarify. One counselor hissed, its elongated skull tilting with curiosity sharpened into mockery. You imply your military has layers? Another leaned forward, armored tendrils clinking softly. We have studied your species. Your conflicts are inefficient, emotional, wasteful. Your standard infantry already operates with alarming aggression. A pause. Then, with a low, rumbling chuckle. What, then, could possibly be worse? The laughter returned, thicker this time, heavier, echoing off the black crystal walls of the chamber like distant thunder. At the center of it all stood a single human. No armor. No visible weapon. Just a dark suit, slightly worn at the cuffs, and a face that looked like it had seen too much and decided not to forget any of it. Ambassador Daniel Reyes didn't smile. He didn't frown either. He simply watched them. Waiting. The laughter dragged on longer than it should have. Not because it was funny, but because no one wanted to be the first to take a human seriously. Finally, one of the elder species, an ancient, towering being whose kind had erased entire star systems before humanity discovered electricity, lifted a clawed hand. Enough, it said. The chamber quieted, though traces of amusement still lingered in the air. You may answer, the elder continued, its many eyes focusing on Reyes. What are these? Special forces? Reyes clasped his hands behind his back. For a moment he said nothing. Then, they're what we use, he said calmly. When the army isn't enough. Silence. Not the respectful kind. The skeptical kind. A counselor scoffed. Your army already borders on recklessness. You deploy soldiers into impossible conditions, accept unacceptable casualties, and call it victory. Another added, voice dripping with disdain. If that is your baseline, then your so-called special forces must be either myth or suicide units. Reyes tilted his head slightly. Sometimes, he admitted. That caught them off guard. Not the answer they expected. The elder leaned forward. Explain. Reyes took a slow breath. You've studied our wars, he said. You've seen the data. The footage. The casualty reports. A few counselors shifted, uncomfortable with the implication. We have, one replied. And we concluded your species survives through numbers and unpredictability. Not superiority. Reyes nodded. That's where you made your first mistake. A flicker of irritation moved through the chamber. And the second? The elder asked. Reyes' eyes hardened, just a fraction. You assumed what you were seeing was everything we had. That landed. Not heavily. Not yet. But enough to make a few of them straighten in their seats. You speak in riddles, one counselor snapped. If you intend to impress us human, you are failing. Reyes almost smiled. I'm not trying to impress you. A pause. I'm trying to warn you. That did it. The amusement vanished. Not replaced by fear, but by something sharper. Annoyance. You overstep, the elder said coldly. Your species has been granted a voice here as a courtesy. Do not mistake that for authority. Reyes met its gaze without flinching. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Around the chamber, security units shifted slightly, subtle repositioning, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. Reyes noticed. Of course he did. One of the counselors leaned back, tapping a claw against its armrest. Let us speak plainly, it said. Your species is new. Ambitious. Volatile. You have potential, but potential is not power. Another added. We have crushed empires far greater than yours for less than this tone. Reyes nodded slowly. I know. And yet you stand here, the elder said. Issuing warnings? Reyes exhaled quietly. Not warnings, he corrected. Advice. That drew a few dark chuckles. Advice? One repeated. From a species that hasn't survived a single galactic cycle? Reyes' voice remained steady. Yes. The elder's eyes narrowed. Then give it, it said. Your advice. Reyes glanced around the chamber. Really looked this time. At the species who had ruled for millennia. At the ones who believed themselves untouchable. At the ones who had never truly been afraid. Stop testing us, he said. Silence. Then, laughter again. Shorter this time. Sharper. Or what? Someone asked. Reyes didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket. Security units tensed instantly, weapons priming, targeting systems locking onto him in less than a heartbeat. But he moved slowly. Deliberately. He pulled out a small device. Simple. Unremarkable. He placed it on the central podium. What is that? The elder demanded. Reyes stepped back. A courtesy, he said. One of the council's tech specialists scanned it remotely. Minimal energy signature, no weapons system detected, primitive design. The counselor hesitated. Possibly a communication relay. Reyes nodded. Close enough. The elder gestured. Activate it. Reyes didn't move. It's already active. A faint sound filled the chamber. At first, no one noticed it. Just a low, almost inaudible hum. Then, a voice. Distorted. Filtered. Human. In position. The chamber went still. Another voice followed. Perimeter secured. Then a third. Awaiting confirmation. The elder's eyes widened slightly. What is this? Reyes looked at him. Second mistake, he said quietly. You assumed this meeting was isolated. The hum grew louder. No, clearer. More voices. Dozens. Hundreds? All speaking in clipped, precise tones. No panic. No hesitation. Just readiness. One of the counselors barked an order. Seal the chamber. Lock all external access. Already done, another replied. Then how? Reyes answered for them. We didn't come through your doors. A pause. Then, a faint thud. Somewhere beyond the chamber walls. Another. Closer. Heavier. The security units turned toward the sound, weapons fully charged now. What are we detecting? The elder demanded. The tech specialist's voice faltered. I don't know. There's no entry signature. No breach pattern. It's like... Another thud. Right behind the main chamber wall. The lights flickered. Like they were already inside. That was when the first crack appeared. Not in the wall. In the council. Reyes folded his hands behind his back again. Calm. Composed. Unmoving. You asked what special forces are, he said softly. The chamber held its breath. The wall behind them dented inward, just slightly. Metal groaning under impossible pressure. Reyes' eyes didn't leave the elder. This, he said, is the part where you stopped laughing. The next impact didn't dent the wall. It broke it. When the lights die, the wall didn't just break. It gave up. A section of reinforced alloy, designed to withstand kinetic bombardment, collapsed inward like wet paper, folding under a force the council's sensors still couldn't identify. The impact didn't echo. It punched the air out of the room. For half a second, no one moved. Then everything happened at once. Security, engage! Seal the inner ring! Activate suppression fields! Orders collided, overlapped, contradicted each other. The chamber, so composed moments ago, fractured into noise and panic. Too late. Something stepped through the dust. At first, it looked like a shadow. Then the lighting stabilized just enough to reveal shape. Human-sized, human-built, wrapped in matte black armor that seemed to absorb the flickering emergency glow. No insignia. No reflective surfaces. No wasted detail. A visor, smooth and opaque, turned slowly across the chamber. Another figure dropped silently from the broken upper structure, no jet flare, no visible propulsion, landing in a crouch that didn't even crack the floor. Then a third. A fourth. By the time the guards opened fire, there were 6 of them inside. The first volley lit the chamber in violent streaks, plasma bolts, kinetic slugs, coherent beams tearing through the air. And hitting nothing. The humans didn't dodge. They weren't there anymore. One instant they occupied space. The next, they had already decided not to. A guard's weapon jammed with a sharp metallic snap. He looked down, and a gloved hand was already on it. The human twisted. The weapon came apart like it had been designed to fail. A second motion, short, precise. And the guard dropped, body locking mid-scream as something disrupted his nervous system at the base of his spine. No flourish. No follow-through. Just elimination. Across the chamber, another guard managed to track one of the intruders, his targeting system finally catching up long enough to fire. The shot connected. Dead center mass. The human staggered half a step. Then straightened. The armor hadn't burned. It hadn't even marked. The visor tilted slightly, as if curious. Then the human moved. Distance vanished. There was no other way to describe it. One moment far. The next close. Too close. The guard raised his arm. Too slow. The human's hand snapped forward, fingers striking 3 points along the guard's chest in rapid succession. A pulse. Invisible. The guard's armor powered down instantly. His weapon went dead. His limbs followed a heartbeat later. He collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Energy disruption. One of the council technicians whispered, voice shaking. Localized, precise, impossible. Ambassador Reyes didn't look at him. Not impossible, he said quietly. Just practiced. A heavy unit, larger than the others, armored in layered plating, charged one of the humans with a roar that shook the chamber. This one didn't dodge. Didn't retreat. He stepped forward to meet it. The collision should have shattered him. Instead, the human turned slightly, guiding the momentum past him with minimal contact, one hand redirecting the massive limb, the other driving something small and metallic into a seam in the armor. A click. A pause. Then the unit exploded from the inside, not in fire, but in failure. Systems cascading, joints locking, power cells overloading just enough to fry every circuit without detonating. The giant collapsed mid-stride. Dead weight. The human let it fall. Efficient. Controlled. Deliberate. The council watched in horror, not because of the violence, but because of the restraint. They weren't destroying everything. They were choosing what to destroy. One of the elder counselors finally found his voice. This is an act of war. Reyes turned slightly, as if acknowledging a distant sound. No, he said. This is what happens right before one. A sharp tone cut through the chaos. One of the humans spoke for the first time. Inner perimeter secured. Another voice, from somewhere unseen. Upper ring neutralized. A third calm and steady. No civilian targets. Confirmed. Reyes nodded once. Good. The elder's eyes widened. You're coordinating this? Reyes finally looked at him directly. I'm observing, he said. The elder recoiled slightly. You brought them here. You planned this. Yes. The honesty hit harder than any weapon. Why? Another counselor demanded, desperation creeping into its voice. Why attack us here? Why risk total war? Reyes' expression didn't change. Because this is the only place you'd all be in one room, he said. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. A guard, one of the last still standing, activated a wide-spectrum suppression field. The air shimmered as energy flooded the chamber, designed to disable electronics, disrupt nervous systems, and shut down biological threats indiscriminately. It hit the humans. Nothing happened. The guards stared. No effect? He whispered. One of the humans turned toward him. Outdated, the soldier said simply. Then he moved. The guard never saw him coming. The suppression field flickered and died. Across the chamber, one of the council's strategic minds began piecing it together, its voice trembling with realization. You didn't just infiltrate us, it said slowly. You studied us. Reyes inclined his head. For a long time. The councilor's breathing quickened. Our defenses, our protocols, our response times. All mapped, Reyes confirmed. All tested. The councilor's gaze snapped to the fallen guards, the disabled systems, the silent weapons. This wasn't an assault, it whispered. Reyes' voice was ice. No. A beat. It's a demonstration. Another explosion, distant this time, rolled faintly through the structure. Not from inside the chamber. From outside. The council froze. What was that? The elder demanded. No one answered. But one of the humans did. Phase 1 complete, he said. Reyes closed his eyes briefly. Then opened them. Right on cue. The walls around them flickered, not from damage, but from the displays embedded within them activating all at once. Live feeds. Dozens. Hundreds. Every angle of the Council's orbital defenses. Their fleets. Their stations. And on every single screen. Chaos. Ships drifting powerless. Weapons going dark. Command vessels venting atmosphere and controlled breaches that didn't destroy them, but rendered them helpless. Silent strikes. Perfect timing. Total control. The elder staggered back. No, it breathed. Reyes watched the screens with quiet satisfaction. You asked what makes our special forces different, he said. He gestured to the soldiers. To you, war is scale. Numbers. Firepower. A pause. To us. Another distant explosion. Another system going dark. It's access. One of the counselors collapsed into its seat, voice hollow. You're dismantling us. Reyes didn't look away from the screens. Yes. A beat. Carefully. The lead soldier stepped beside him. Awaiting further instruction. Reyes considered the room, the fear, the shock, the dawning understanding. Then he spoke. Hold position. The soldier nodded. The council stared. Confused. Terrified. You're stopping? One asked. Reyes finally turned back to them. For now. The elder's voice shook. You expect us to believe this is mercy? Reyes' eyes hardened. No, he said. I expect you to understand this is discipline. Silence fell again. But this time, no one laughed. The things they never measured. No one gave orders anymore. Not because they didn't want to. Because no one knew which order still mattered. The council chamber, once the axis of 1,000 empires, had become a quiet, suffocating tomb of realization. Smoke drifted in thin ribbons from disabled systems. The faint hum of failing machinery replaced the confident pulse of power that had filled the room only minutes ago. And at the center of it all, humans stood still. Not celebrating. Not advancing. Waiting. That was what unsettled them most. One of the elder strategists, a being whose species had survived 6 extinction-level wars, leaned forward slowly. Its voice came out brittle. You could have killed us! Reyes didn't answer immediately. He walked a few steps, hands still clasped behind his back, shoes crunching lightly over debris that used to be cutting-edge defense systems. Yes, he said finally. The strategist's eyes narrowed. Then why didn't you? Reyes stopped. Turned. Because dead enemies don't learn. The words hit harder than any explosion. Across the chamber, one of the counselors, young by their standards, impulsive, still clinging to pride, snapped. This is coercion. It spat. A theatrical show of force to intimidate us into submission. One of the human soldiers shifted slightly. Not aggressively. Just enough. The counselor flinched anyway. Reyes didn't even look at it. If intimidation was the goal, he said calmly, you wouldn't still have a fleet. That shut it down. Fast. Another council member, its voice quieter, more analytical, spoke next. You disabled our outer defenses without detection. You infiltrated a sealed chamber. You neutralized elite security in seconds. A pause. You knew exactly how far to go, and where to stop. Reyes inclined his head. Yes. The counselor's gaze sharpened. That level of precision requires more than technology. Reyes' expression didn't change. It requires experience. Silence again. But now it wasn't fear alone filling the room. It was something worse. Understanding. The elder strategist leaned back slowly. We studied your wars, it said. We catalogued your weapons, your tactics, your casualty rates. Its voice grew quieter. But we never understood them. Reyes' eyes flickered, just for a moment. No, he said. You didn't. The strategist tilted its head. Explain. Reyes exhaled softly. You saw chaos, he said. Unpredictability. Emotional decision-making. High-risk engagements. He gestured faintly toward the soldiers. You thought that was a flaw. A faint, humorless smile touched his lips. That was your third mistake. The room held still. Reyes continued. We weren't being chaotic, he said. We were learning fast. A subtle shift moved through the soldiers, almost imperceptible, like a current passing through them. Every failed operation, Reyes went on. Every loss, every mistake, we don't bury them. A beat. We weaponize them. One of the counselors whispered, almost to itself. You turn failure into doctrine. Reyes nodded once. Yes. The implication spread through the chamber like a slow-burning fire. All those reports? All that inefficiency? All those unnecessary losses? They hadn't been signs of weakness. They had been data. Refinement. Training at a scale no other species would tolerate. Another counselor spoke, voice shaking. That would require a tolerance for suffering beyond reason. Reyes' gaze hardened. Not tolerance, he said. Acceptance. That landed heavier than anything before. Because now it made sense. Why human soldiers kept advancing when logic said retreat. Why their tactics evolved mid-battle. Why their outcomes improved in ways that defied prediction. They weren't just fighting wars. They were building something with them. Something that was now standing in this room. One of the humans stepped forward slightly. External update, he said. Reyes nodded. Report. Council Fleet Command structure fully compromised. Autonomous systems locked out. Remaining resistance minimal. A pause. Awaiting directive. Reyes glanced at the council. Show them. The soldier didn't move. But the wall display shifted again. This time, the feeds zoomed in. Closer. Clearer. Ships, massive, ancient war vessels, drifting in formation. Intact. Undamaged. But dead. No lights. No weapons. No control. One by one, identifiers flickered across the screen. Flagships, command carriers, strategic nodes. All offline. All taken without destruction. A counselor gasped. You boarded them? Reyes shook his head. No. A pause. We never needed to. The counselor stared. Then how? Reyes cut him off gently. You keep thinking in terms of attack vectors, he said. Entry points. Firepower. Force. He tapped the side of his head lightly. We think in terms of access. The word echoed. Heavy. Final. Another council member, older, colder, finally spoke what none of them wanted to admit. You were inside our systems before this meeting ever began. Reyes didn't deny it. The elder strategist closed its eyes slowly. For how long? Reyes answered without hesitation. Long enough. That broke something. Not physically. Mentally. The illusion of control, the foundation of the Council's power, fractured completely. Because this wasn't a battle they had lost. It was a game they had never realized they were playing. One of the counselors let out a hollow laugh. We invited you here, it said. Reyes nodded. Yes. And you used that invitation to dismantle us from the inside. Another nod. Yes. The counselor looked around at the silent soldiers, the dead systems, the frozen fleets. And you expect us to, what? Applaud? Rhea's voice dropped slightly. No. A beat. I expect you to adapt. The word lingered. Adapt. It sounded simple. It wasn't. Because to adapt, they would have to admit something no empire ever willingly admits. They had been outmatched. Not in strength. Not in numbers. But in something far more dangerous. Mindset. The lead soldier stepped closer to Reyes. Time window closing, he said. External observers beginning to notice anomalies. Reyes nodded slowly. Of course they are. He turned back to the council. This is the part where you decide, he said. The elder's voice was barely steady. Decide what? Reyes met its gaze. Whether this becomes a war, or a lesson. Silence. Deep. Unavoidable. One of the counselors whispered. And if we choose wrong? Reyes didn't hesitate. Then next time, he said quietly, we don't stop. The weight of that promise settled over them like a collapsing star. Because now, they believed him. Not because of the threat, but because of the control he had shown in holding back. The elder strategist leaned forward again, slower this time. Measured. Careful. You said earlier, it began, that our mistake was assuming we had seen everything you were capable of. Reyes nodded once. Yes. The strategist's eyes locked onto his. What haven't we seen yet? For the first time. Reyes smiled. And it wasn't reassuring. We haven't needed it yet. The room went cold. Not physically. Something deeper. Because every instinct in every ancient, battle-hardened mind in that chamber screamed the same thing. This was still the restrained version. The demonstration. Not the war. And somewhere, in the quiet between heartbeats, they realized the most dangerous truth of all. Humans didn't escalate out of anger. They escalated with permission. The lead soldier's voice cut through the silence. Extraction window open. Reyes gave a small nod. Then he looked at the council one last time. Choose carefully, he said. Because next time, there wouldn't be a conversation. When the galaxy learned our name, no one spoke when the humans began to leave. Not because they were gone, but because nobody was certain they actually had left. The chamber remained intact, physically, structurally, even structurally perfect, in a cruel irony. Nothing had been destroyed unnecessarily. No walls collapsed. No seats shattered beyond repair. That was the part that haunted the council most. Because it meant everything that happened had been intentional. Ambassador Reyes paused at the broken threshold where the first breach had occurred. Behind him, the last of the human soldiers moved with synchronized silence, their presence already fading into something harder to track than invisibility, irrelevance. One of the counselors finally found its voice. You will not get away with this, it said, though the words lacked conviction. Reyes didn't turn around. That's the difference between us, he replied calmly. We're not trying to get away with anything. A beat. We already did what we came to do. That landed heavier than any weapon discharge. The elder strategist rose slowly, trembling not from injury, but realization. This was never about conquest, it said quietly. You didn't come here to dominate us. Reyes stopped. Turned slightly. No, he confirmed. A pause. We came to make sure you understood the rules have changed. Silence. Outside the chamber, Alarms that no one had heard begin to resync finally stabilized. Systems across the Council's infrastructure were rebooting, not by alien intervention, but by human command protocols quietly embedded hours earlier. The Council's fleets weren't destroyed. They were reassigned. One of the younger councilors stepped forward, voice cracking with disbelief. "You've taken command authority over half the defensive grid of the inner sector." Reyes nodded once. "Yes." A pause. "Temporarily." That word did something no explosion could. Temporarily. Not forever. Not conquest. Control with an expiration date. It meant they could lose it again. Or worse. Never fully understand how they lost it in the first place. The counselor's voice dropped. "You're making yourselves indispensable." Reyes finally faced them fully. "No," he said. "We're making ourselves visible." That distinction froze the room again. Because invisibility had been their mistake. For millennia, the Council had ruled because nothing ever truly challenged them in a way they couldn't categorize, suppress, or erase. Humans didn't fit. They didn't escalate like predictable empires. They didn't collapse like fragile ones. They adapted, learned, waited, and then acted with surgical precision at the exact moment certainty turned into arrogance. The elder strategist spoke again, quieter now. "If we comply," it asked carefully, "what happens next?" Reyes considered that. Not quickly. Not theatrically. Honestly. "That depends," he said, "on whether you learn faster than we do." A strange silence followed that answer. Because for the first time, the Council realized something unsettling. They were no longer the fastest learners in the room. A distant vibration rolled through the structure again, not an attack this time, but movement. Systems shifting. Fleets repositioning. Entire sectors quietly reorganizing under human-defined parameters. And yet nothing was burning. Nothing was falling. It was worse. Everything was being rearranged. One of the counselors muttered bitterly. "So this is occupation dressed as restraint." Reyes shook his head slightly. "No," he said. "This is survival, dressed as patience." That word again. Patience. The Council had never valued it. They conquered quickly. Expanded quickly. Eliminated threats before they could evolve. Humans did the opposite. They let threats evolve. Until they became predictable. Then they ended them. The lead soldier stepped beside Reyes once more. "External observers are broadcasting fragments of the engagement," he reported. "Galactic channels are reacting. Panic spreading in outer sectors." Reyes exhaled softly. "Good." The counselor nearest him snapped. "Good? You've destabilized the entire political balance of the quadrant." Reyes looked at him evenly. "No," he corrected. "We revealed how unstable it already was." That silence again. He continued, almost conversational now. "You built an empire on the assumption that no one would ever reach your core systems without warning." A faint, tired amusement flickered in his voice. "We reached it. We didn't even knock." The counselor looked down at the broken chamber floor. At the silence where security once stood. At the empty space where confidence used to be. "What are we supposed to tell the rest of the galaxy?" it asked quietly. Reyes paused at the exit. Then answered without turning back. "Tell them the truth." A beat. "The humans are no longer new." A long silence. Then he added, softer, but far more dangerous. "They're just early." And then he was gone. The soldiers followed without sound, like shadows deciding they were done being seen. The chamber doors sealed behind them. Not destroyed. Not locked. Simply closed. For a long time, no one moved. No one spoke. The Council of 1,000 Worlds sat in the aftermath of something they could not classify as victory or defeat. Finally, the elder strategist broke the silence. "We miscalculated," it said. A counselor responded bitterly. "We underestimated them." The elder shook its head slowly. "No." Its eyes lifted. "We assumed they were like everyone else." That sentence hung in the air longer than any weapon ever could. Because it wasn't an admission of failure. It was an admission of ignorance. Outside, across the stars, fleets that had once ruled unchallenged now operated under systems they did not fully understand. Borders blurred. Command chains restructured. Entire doctrines rewritten in real time. And somewhere in that vast silence of space, human special forces were already gone. Not because they had withdrawn, but because they had never needed to stay. Ambassador Reyes' final words echoed across encrypted channels long after he was out of range. "We don't start wars because we want them." A pause. "We start them because you forget we can." And in the cold, endless dark of the galaxy, for the first time in recorded history, everyone remembered.